Hi, Daisy. I'm quite excited to finally have this call with you. I've been looking forward to hearing your story and your journey, and I can't wait for everyone else to hear your part of the story, studying in Canada. So, can you just give us a brief of who you are, what you studied or what you're studying, and where you are currently in life?
Well, thank you, Lucy, for having me to talk a little bit about my journey and how people can start their own journeys from their countries to come to Canada. For those who don't know me, my name is Daisy. I actually studied mechanical engineering at a small university in Newfoundland, which is a province in Canada. It's on the east coast of Canada. And I've been in Canada since 2016. So this would be I don't know, I stopped counting, probably 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. And so I graduated 2 years ago. So I'm currently working as a maintenance and reliability engineer in training. Um, and yeah, it's been going really well.
Mhm.
And I think I don't want to talk too much because we're going to dive into a lot of the
Yeah.
other details as we go. Yeah.
I can't wait for you to get more detailed in terms of like your work experience now, since you are an international student. How was it landing a job and all that? But before we get to all that exciting stuff, I wanted us to talk about so how was your application process?
Okay.
How did you find yourself landing in Canada? Like, why did you pick Canada? And how was the application process or preparation before?
Okay. Well, in my case, I actually didn't really choose Canada. My mom wanted me to come to Canada, but Canada is such a big country,
Mm.
and there's like a lot of universities and colleges that you can go to. So, I actually went to this place in Mount Pleasant. I'm forgetting the name,
Mm.
but there's a place in Mount Pleasant, Zimbabwe,
Mm.
where I went. I think it's called Global Zimbabwe. I think something global.
Mm.
And I went there and they had like agents there who were advertising different universities in different countries. So they gave me like a small pamphlet for Memorial University. And when I came, it was still one of the cheapest universities in Canada. I think it still is, but the tuition has gone way up. But it's still cheap compared to the other universities in Canada.
Mm.
So that's how I got to know about Memorial University, and then I applied online. They have like a very simple process. You just go on their website, you choose your program, and you you send your regular information, your birth certificate and all that on the application, and then they'll ask your certification board to send your results. So for Zimbabweans, that would be ZIMSEC. So I actually had to go to the ZIMSEC offices and ask them to send my results directly to Memorial University. But I've talked to people who mentioned that they just notarized the ones that they have. Like they notarized their results and then they sent them through DHL. So that's another option. But I went through like the ZIMSEC process. You have to pay money. It's been a long time, so I don't remember how much you pay. I know DHL is $45. It was $45 then. I don't know if the prices have changed. But just to ship your documents, it's $45. And I think to get the results was $80. But again, this is like 2016. So you go there, you tell them what you need, you give them the address for the school, and then they send the results. And then the school will look at your profile, um they'll look at your results, they see the curriculum. If there's Because for Zimbabweans, we have like forms 1 to 6. So form 5 and 6 is kind of considered as the first 2 years of university in Canada. So if you did your form 5 and 6, you would get transfer credits. So
Mm.
they would acknowledge that you actually did the courses that you did. and then you don't have to do them again when you come to Canada. So that's what transfer credits means. So they looked through my profile, they looked through my results, and then they gave me transfer credits, and then they accepted me into the program. But then I actually wanted to do, like, I was doing general science, so they just accepted me in the general science department. And once you get that offer letter from the school saying, oh, we're offering you this position or like this school vacancy, that's when you start applying for your visa. So with the visa process, I actually went through an agent. So there's an agent in Harare who was helping me with the process. And so I went there, I paid the money, they told me all the documents that I needed. And I submitted all the documents, and then they sent them to the visa office, which is in South Africa for Zimbabweans. And from then it was processed, and I had to monitor my emails. So they sent out an email saying, they just told me my passport is coming back. They didn't tell me if I had the visa or not, like if I got it or not. So I had to wait until the passport came back to see if there was a visa in there or not, which was kind of scary because it took like a week for the passports to get to Harare. But yes, I did get the visa. But on that note, I would like to also say that when my little sister came, she came last year, we didn't go through the agent route. We just did the whole process on our own. So you just go to the Canadian website, they'll ask you a bunch of questions. And that's just a way for them to figure out what documents you have to submit. So you answer all the questions that they ask you, and then they'll generate like slots for the documents that you need to submit. So once you finish those questions, they'll tell you, oh, you need your offer letter from your school, you need your birth certificate, your passport, we need like travel history, your family history, like your family chart, and medical exams that you have to do from like a specific doctor. You don't just go to any doctor. There's like a specific doctor that you need to go and get your medical examinations from.
For the can
Because
like to go to Canada.
yeah,
Wow.
and you have to pay a lot of money. I don't remember how much it was again. I think it's maybe between 150 to 250, maybe. For your medicals, and then they would submit those medicals directly to the immigration, but they'll give you like a form that you would upload on your application to state that you actually did the exam. And I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think that's it. But then the good thing is they'll list everything you need. So there's no way you will miss anything. Oh, and the bank statements. That's one of the most important things, the bank statements.
The what? Bank
Bank
statement.
statements, yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll get
Or
to
like
that.
or like a proof of finances.
Yeah.
It could be other things, but yeah.
I was
So
gonna
I kind of have experience with both the agent and doing it alone. So I'll probably touch on that as well.
okay. So I was
Yeah.
gonna ask during your time, but also I think approximately like when's the deadline usually, like which month? And then you would advise the people who are applying to Canada to start the application how many months prior? Because sometimes like someone can think that the deadline is next month and they start this month, but maybe the visa application process would take time. The Zim certification education thing, they might take so much time. So it's like how long should someone before start the application?
Okay. That's actually a good question. I always try to tell people when they ask me that, when you, especially if you're like Zimbabwean or like maybe in any other African country, people are so relaxed because
Yeah.
it's like, I think we are used to getting around quite easily, or like bribing people, like people are used to bribing people, or just, I don't know, there's always a way out of something.
Mhm.
But with Canada, if the deadline is the 1st of March, it's the 1st of March. Like you're not going to email them and beg, or like try to use your connections. If the deadline is March 1st, it's March 1st. But the good thing is they always publicize these dates. Like if you go to like a school website, if you want to start, let's say you want to start school in fall, which would be September to December, you would normally, the deadline for that semester would be March 1st. I know that for Memorial, maybe some schools would differ. Some schools maybe would do February, some schools would do April. But
Mhm.
if you go to the school website, you would see when the deadlines are, because visas don't really have deadlines. But one thing you need to remember is visas take time. Like you're not going to apply today and next week it's out. The student ones, I think they take about 3 months, but also it kind of changes with time. Like it depends on how many people are applying, if they have like backlogs and all that. So my advice is to go on the Canadian website. If you look for processing times, there's like if you type Canadian visas processing times, it will ask you questions. Which visa are you looking to apply? Which country are you applying from? If you give it that information, it will tell you like a rough estimate of how long your visa will take to process. But usually it's about 3 months, but it could be more, it could be less. But 3 months is like your ballpark.
Yeah.
So if you want to start school in September and the visa takes 3 months, you have to do the math and see, because obviously you want to have your visa before you start school, and maybe like a month before you start school, so that you can come, you get settled down, you get to know where everything is, where you take the bus, where you're going for school, like just getting familiar with the environment before you start school. Um, so I'll think the earlier the better, honestly. As soon as you get your offer letter, just start doing your process and do it as fast as you can.
Mm.
So your deadline is pretty much when you'd start school.
Mm.
But even still, it's not really a deal breaker. Like if your visa comes in, if you feel like you're late, maybe let's say you're like a month late. One thing you can do is you can defer. Like you can email the school and tell them your visa isn't going to come out on time.
Mm.
So you can defer to the next semester, and they'll tell you if you have to reapply or just defer. And if you want, you can just do some of the courses online for like a week or so whilst you're waiting for your visa. Or you can just come and catch up when you're here. I wouldn't advise that though, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's always ways around it for sure.
And then were there any like academic requirements for let's say the program that you studied for, and then maybe a general academic requirement? Would you have to have specific averages to get accepted to study in Canada?
Good question. I would say yes and no. So the thing is, international students pay a whole lot more money than domestic students. Because in my case, when we started, one course was $880, I think.
Mm.
And the Canadians were paying 220. So we're paying 4 times more than a Canadian was paying. So because of that, um, like schools would definitely offer you something because you're bringing in money. Schools
Mm.
are essentially businesses as well.
Mm.
But there's also some programs where your GPA would matter. Like You like if you want to do medicine, they're not going to take you if you have like 50% just because they want the money. So I think maybe they could be some programs that could have like a leeway of grades, or what they could do is they could tell you to come and do like let's say they need math and you don't have math, they could tell you to do like a math placement test where you write your math placement test. And then if you get a good score, you then get into the program. Or they could tell you to, I don't know, somehow they can make you supplement some of the courses. Or like in the case of Zimbabweans, where your last 2 years of high school would be considered as the first 2 years of university. If your grades aren't that good for those last 2 years, you just won't get credits. So you'd have to redo the same courses in Canada. So then instead of like skipping them, you'd kind of redo them essentially. But grades are important. I can definitely attest to that. Memorial University, for you to get in, you would need, I think they needed a C, at least a C in every course that you did. But yeah, I don't want to say C's are attainable, but yeah, I think maybe that
Yeah.
it's kind of doable. Yeah. But yeah, a C was a minimum that they wanted.
Mm,
So if you didn't have a C,
mhm.
you would have to do something about that. They'll probably decline. I know people who've been declined their applications because of grades. So grades are really important. Like I mean, just like every other university,
Yeah.
you'd still.
So I think for someone who's applying, they should just check the school. I don't know, should I call it portal or website? And they'll
Yeah,
normally like list all the requirements.
exactly. If
Yeah.
every school has that, like go to the school, they could have like general school requirements, and then they could have specific program requirements as
Mm,
well. So maybe the school general requirement is they need a C, but
mm,
then you go to the engineering one, they're like, no, 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 we need Bs. So you have to know what you want, go through the program to see what their requirements are.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so were there any like standardized tests or exams that people had to that you have to take before you study in Canada, or um do you have to take the language proficiency tests like IELTS or yeah.
For Zimbabweans, you don't. Well, actually, I don't want people to misquote me. You have to look at the program for the school. You have to go through the school website and see what they say. But for most universities I've looked at, they do not require English from Zimbabweans because English is considered our first language. So they don't require English from any Zimbabweans. This
Mm,
is like for entering university and for like your visa, obviously. But after you've graduated, when you want to apply for your permanent residence, you have to do English tests. And
oh,
it's
okay.
very weird because I already completed my degree in
Mhm.
English. Why would I have to then prove that I
Yeah,
can actually speak English? But yes, you'd have to do it when you're doing your PR process.
actually that's right.
But for
I was just thinking about it, like how you just graduated, like while
yeah,
doing the whole degree in English. Like, did I fake completing my degree?
for
Yeah,
4 years,
for 4 years.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just I don't know. They just want to make money because you have to pay for the English test anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, but when you're applying to the school, most schools they don't need English from Zimbabweans. I know Nigerians do have to take English. I think I might be wrong, but
yeah,
um
I think
I
also
I
my
think
country might require that. I think just depending with your country,
yeah, yeah.
you have to do it. And did you have to attach any like recommendation letters or personal statements?
For the application to the school, no. But for the visas, you'd have to write what they call a personal statement, where you pretty much tell them why you chose to study in Canada, why you chose that degree, um, and just kind of explaining what your plan is and if you're going to go back home after your degree, which they want you to say. The Canadian government considers studying in Canada as a luxury.
Mm,
So they want you to have money. It's not like an escape route to escape from your country.
mm,
So they kind of want you to express that you're only doing it because you think the Canadian education system is good and you think you'd learn a lot, but you would want to go back to your country. Even if you don't, you kind of have to state that in your personal
yeah.
statement. You have ties back home and you wish to go back and apply the information that you learned in the school
Mm-hmm.
to your own country. Yeah. So the personal statement for the visa, yes, but for the school, at least for my program, no.
Mm.
Maybe different programs would require different things, but I didn't have to do anything for the one that I applied for.
And would you say that like extracurricular activities in school, you know how back in high school teachers will tell you that like you should participate in this and this and that because it would help you with the application process and etc. Like
Yeah.
how I don't know, true is that when applying to go to Canada, or how effective is that? Or if it's yeah.
That's a tough question. Uh yeah, I have to think.
Take your time. I mean, not the whole
Uh
day, but take your time.
yeah. I think yeah, okay. What I would say, this is just my personal opinion. It it definitely depends on your situation. One, it could depend on the school.
Mm,
So I would think that some of the bigger schools, like your top schools, your UPCs and your U of T's, University of Toronto and like University of British Columbia, those are like your top schools.
yeah.
They might need that just because there's like a lot of competition to get into the school.
Oh, okay.
So I think extracurriculars would help with that. Like, just like in the movies where when people are applying to Harvard, they have like all these extracurriculars
Yeah,
to kind of expand their profile. I think it might be the same thing. You could essentially do all these things that could kind of help you with your application.
yeah.
But for my case, they didn't even ask like what I do outside
Mm-hmm.
of the program that I applied for. But also it wasn't like a school that's in demand. Like Newfoundland is not really like a popular um province. Like
Mm,
most people, like even when you ask people about Canada, most people know Toronto, most people know Vancouver, and maybe like Calgary. But Newfoundland is not very popular and it's like a very cold place. The whole of Canada is cold, but like
yeah,
Newfoundland is much colder. And so it's there wasn't much competition to get into that university. So we didn't have to write like any extra thing outside of the application.
mm-hmm.
So extracurriculars weren't really like
Mm,
they didn't play any part in you being accepted or not.
okay.
But not saying that wouldn't affect other universities. And also if you maybe that would also help if you are looking for funding
Mm,
just to, build a personality pretty much. So if you're looking for funding, and I'm sure like most funding applications would require you to kind of talk about yourself and like things you do outside of school. So that could also be why people would encourage you to do extracurriculars.
yeah. And I think just to be like on the safe side, depending, like just to have one, two. And I guess
Yeah.
for the top students who like to be in very competitive spaces, have as many as you can. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just besides trying to prop up your profile, it's most of these extracurricular activities will actually develop some skills that you might need in university or
Mm.
once you get into a work setting. Because if you are doing like, I don't know, Toastmasters, Junior Achievers, or um Interact, yeah, or Leo or something like that. Yeah, there's always some skill that you learn in the process. Like it could be a soft skill, it could be leadership, it could be communication. It's still beneficial. You could still use that knowledge and that experience somewhere.
Absolutely.
Um, so or like just sports. I mean, you're fit, you kind of enjoy sports, have teamwork too. You get to learn with different people.
Yeah.
I think that's still good. Like if I were to advise someone, I would advise them to do extracurriculars. It's really good. You get to kind of harness some skills that you wouldn't learn in the school education system.
And I think on that point of skills, I just wanted to um drop this there as well. What, like, before you applied to Canada, or during application of Canada, or after you started your studies, what skills did you wish you had um before starting your university, or what skills did you just wish that you harnessed by that time, or like they would have helped you with the application process?
Actually, for me, I think this is, I always talk about this, so that's kind of interesting. I personally think I would have loved to have public speaking skills.
Mm,
I suck at talking in front of a crowd. Like if I have a presentation, I can't even breathe. I suck at talking in front of a crowd. But I think it's really important to be able to articulate yourself, whether it's between you and one other person or a group of people. It's very important to be able to express yourself or to explain something like a topic. Like I know with my line of work, you need to be able to convince investors that they need to buy into something. And if you cannot articulate yourself, no matter how smart you are, it's not it's not gonna work. Like you need to be able to say something like and say something meaningful. Like it's not enough to just be smart. You need to be able to convey that message to the rest of the team. So I think, and this is something I'm trying to work on, being able to articulate myself and just speaking in front of a crowd. And it's a journey. It's been a journey, but I think it's very important for everyone. Like in any field that you're going to be into, you really need to be able to speak to whoever you, I mean, even if you're a doctor, you still need to deliver
yeah.
your patient's results somehow. So I would say public speaking, really good. But also for younger students in high school who are looking to get into university, technology, like just know your computer, go around Google. Like if you have data, just search something, like just get to know the world out there. Like I always tell people when they try to apply to come to Canada, like a lot of Zimbabweans believe that using an immigration agent gives them the better chance of getting their visa granted. But those agents don't tell you any new information. All the information you need is right on the Canadian website. But people are so scared of just going online and searching for information. Like people will be like, can you tell me how much that university is. And I'm like, I left that university a long time ago.
Yeah.
Prices change every time. Just go on the website and find out. People are so scared to do that. And I always think, man, like if you're scared of doing that, when you come to Canada, you're gonna be shocked because you do a lot of things on the internet. Like you
Mm.
literally want to go to a restaurant, you have to type in on Google, where can I
Yeah.
find the best restaurant in town? Everything is so internet based. You need to learn how to use the internet. It's so simple, but not everyone is able to do that.
That's true.
And I think that's important because, and now like technology has changed. There's like a lot of new developments coming in. Like ChatGPT is so good. Like I was helping my sister recently. She's applying for like a scholarship, and she was like, "Can you help me write up like a scholarship? Um, I don't know what it was, but like a motivation letter."
Ah,
And I was like, yeah, did you try ChatGPT? And she was like, I don't know what that is. I was like, girl, like ChatGPT will give you what you need in less than a minute.
yeah.
And this is like when I applied, I had to write my own personal statement. I
Mm.
just had to Google like different samples and then try to build up ideas from all the different samples I found. But
Mhm.
now with ChatGPT, you literally just type a sentence and it just spits out everything you need in less than a minute. And I'm like, that's so great. So you people need to be able to just know what's in, know what's out, and figure out what resources you could use to your advantage,
That's
like
true.
ChatGPT. So when I helped her, she was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And I was like, "Yeah." And she didn't even have to like it didn't even take a long for her to figure out how to use it. Because most of these things are user friendly now.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is like you just ask questions. Like I've seen people use it for emails, for like projects. Well, students have been using it for essays in schools.
Mhm.
That's not allowed, but
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
was actually gonna comment on that. For someone who's
no,
gonna see
it's
this
not
and
allowed.
then maybe like they're
No,
just
no,
that's discovering ChatGPT. I'm like, don't use it to copy paste.
no.
I use it to give it like it's a good tool to give you like a starting edge, and
Yeah,
then
you
you
can ask it
personalize it.
to make you a schedule to there's like a lot of things that it can help you with.
Yeah,
But if you don't know it, you're not gonna be able to use it.
yeah.
So
And
I
also
think
to answer
that,
the questions that you ask people about these schools. If you ask it, it can also give you answers.
yeah, it can. It gives you the link where it found the information
Mm.
and like all these immigration questions, you can ask ChatGPT, it will tell you and then it will give you like a link to support what it's saying. And most of the links is just the Canadian website, which you can just go and browse for yourself.
Yeah,
So I think to wrap that up, I would say public speaking is really good. Just getting to know your technology and also just your communication skills, like just writing simple emails. But again, ChatGPT is now like the best tool for that. Just be
yeah,
like, hey, write me an email following up on an order that I made with the supplier, and then it just
yeah,
spits out. But communication is also really good. How to communicate in a workplace, what you can and cannot say. And most importantly, this is something that people learn as they go, but you should know your laws, like the country laws.
mm,
It's very important because ignorance is not an excuse. Like you're
mm,
not going to say, "Oh, I didn't know." Simple things like jaywalking, like in Zimbabwe, you can literally just walk through a street. You can't do that here. Like I literally know someone who got fined $300 for walking across a road where there was no pedestrian walking.
that's
So
crazy.
that is illegal here. You cannot do that. So just and there's like many things that is not enforced, like things that are not enforced in Zimbabwe. But then when you come here, it's such a shock because you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. So you like, I'm not saying go and like go through all the immigration laws or because there's like plenty of them, but just
Yeah.
know your basics. Yeah, know your basics, no jaywalking. Obviously you cannot bribe the police here. So
Yeah.
like no drinking and driving. This is something that gets very popular in Zimbabweans and among young kids. Like just people think it's cool to drink and drive. You can easily get deported if you're caught drinking and driving here.
I
So
think that's a very important point. I mean, not the whole knowing your laws thing. I think someone can overlook that, but with the $300 fine example, especially for like international students, I think it's very important for you to
especially
know.
as a student.
Yeah, especially as a student.
Yeah, no, you can't just jaywalk. You only pass if it's a pedestrian walking or if it's on the traffic light. Other
Mhm.
than that, you can't just pass through a road like it's, I don't know, you can't do
And
that.
then I think something else, I think we touched on this like briefly on the financial requirements when applying to study in Canada. What financial documents are required, and is there like an average I don't know amount that are normally looking for like in the bank statements, and for someone who wants to get financial support, how does that look like for them?
That's a good question, and it's a very blanketed question
Mm,
because there's like many different things you can use to support your application financially. So when you do the application, where you have to submit your financial documents, there's like a little question mark. If you click that question mark, it gives you a breakdown of things that they would accept as proof of finances. So for example, tax documents could be used. So let's say you have your tax document from last year and you made 100,000 last year. Even if your bank account has only, I don't know, maybe like $100, but you have like a text document that says you made 100,000 last year, they can be like, oh yeah, okay, so they have like a constant supply of money. They have a job. So even though they don't have this much, they are able to actually sustain themselves. So bank statements themselves, so they need to see money in your account. The bank statements they really need. They need to see like 4 months of your transactions. So your last 4 months, they want to see money coming in and money going out. And then you can use text documents, which I don't know if we have those in Zimbabwe. I've never seen one, but also I didn't work in Zimbabwe, so I don't know. So you can use text documents, you can use title deeds. So if you have like maybe, I don't know, 3 houses, or like you have even one, I think would count. If you have like a plot of land and maybe it says like its value, let's say you have a plot of land worth like $1 million, you can use that and say, oh yeah, I have a plot of land for $1 million. You can use pay stubs as well. Like if you have pay stubs, maybe 2 or 3 pay stubs, you can use those as well. But the money that they need is, so your tuition, your yearly tuition, plus 20,000 living expense. So that used to be 10,000, but they updated it end of last year and now it's 20,000 because living expense is now much higher than it was before.
mm,
So if, let's say, for example, your yearly tuition is 20,000. And then, so they would need 40,000 in your bank statement
mhm,
because 20,000 for the tuition plus 20,000 living expense for the whole year.
Mm.
That's what they need. So whatever your amount for tuition for the whole year is, plus 20,000 living expense, that's what they would want minimum in your bank statement.
Okay.
But also supported by a job. So if it's your parents sponsoring you, if they have a job, they would have like a letter of employment stating, oh, this is XXX, whatever your parents' name. They work with this company, they earn this much, they have these benefits. Because I guess to them, it's not enough that you have this big chunk of money. They also need to know you have like a way of sustaining it as well. Because also, like I said, you need to provide family information. So
Mm.
if they look at the family information and say, oh, this person has like 5 siblings. If you guys have 40,000 in your bank statement and your parents don't have jobs, so then are they just spending all this money on your
On
tuition?
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that would be probably a question mark to them. So they would need that money, but they also need to know like you actually have something. If you have a business, for example, maybe your parents don't work, but maybe you guys have like a business, you have a company, you can put those financial documents in and say, oh yeah, this is my company. I generate this much in a year, so that they know like this is how you're going to essentially sponsor yourself.
Mm.
Then if you have a scholarship, I don't know how it would work for people with scholarships, but I think maybe if you're already at the scholarship, like if you already given the scholarship, you can just attach it as well as part of the proof of funds. And one other important thing is if you pay your tuition, let's say you pay your tuition before you start your visa process, and let's say you already paid the 20,000. Let's say your bank account had 40,000. You pay the 20,000 for your tuition. Now your bank only has 20,000. And now you have to apply for your visa. When you do the application and you need to put your proof of funds, you can ask your school for a tuition receipt. So you attach the receipt and then they'll know that, okay, the money in your account is 20,000, but you've already paid the tuition.
Mm.
So like that tuition is like the money that's in your account is just you spending money. You already paid the tuition.
Mm.
It's always really important to have that tuition receipt put on the proof of funds so that they know, oh, this is because otherwise, if you don't put it, what they're going to assume is the 20,000 is for the tuition. Okay, but what are
Mm.
you going to spend? So
Yeah.
you have to actually put it so that they acknowledge that, oh, they already paid the tuition. This money is just the money that they're going to spend. And
Mm.
oh, okay, their parent has a job, so this is how much they make, and they'll be able to fund their kid through their university.
And
But again, and it's a lot of money. Like, I honestly don't know. Like, it's 40,000 is a lot to just have in your account. It's just sitting in there. Oh, one thing you can also use is like stock. So let's say, for example, your parents have like 20,000 worth of like stocks in Amazon or whatever. They can also use that as part of like your proof of funds.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's still a lot of money to have in your account.
Mhm.
But again, the Canadian government views international students coming to Canada as a luxury. So
Mm.
to them, it's like, well, you clearly have the money, so we want you to prove you have the money. And
Mm.
it's such a hot topic right now because a lot of international students have been coming in and then trying to work, and because you can only work 20 hours a week when you're in school,
Mhm.
and you can work full time in the summer semester, but or the summer break. Um, but then working 20 hours a week with the living expenses right now is really rough. Like it's such a hassle. Like I really feel for all the students right now. But because of that, some students have started to break the law and going over those 20 hours, which is very risky. And I honestly would not advise that because they actually do random checks. I know they used to do them before. I don't know what the system is like now, but I actually had a friend who they just selected her for a random check and they're like, send us your, like, we want to see how many hours you worked in the past whatever months. And luckily she wasn't breaking the law, so she was fine. But you could be unlucky. And if that happens, I've read articles where people actually could get deported if they're caught going over the 20 hours. So because of that, like they are very strict on people having the finances because when international students come and they don't have the means to support themselves, they start to strain the government and the economy because people will start going to, like in Ontario, people have been going to food banks because food banks are mostly for like poor people and like homeless people, people who are really in need. But then international students started to go there to essentially grocery shop at like a food bank, and that's obviously taking advantage of the system. And then people who actually needed them, like people who were homeless and didn't have jobs, could not make use of that food bank. So that's like a prime example of how like international students will start abusing the system, and the Canadian government doesn't want that. And on top of that, we have like a serious housing crisis in Canada right now. So it's really hard to find a place to stay, especially in Newfoundland. My sister struggled to get a place to stay. And because there's such a scramble for rentals, people start charging ridiculous amounts. Obviously, supply and demand, the
Mm-hmm.
demand is high, they start hiking up the prices. And that's in most places. In Ontario, it's big too. Um, I don't know about Vancouver and Calgary, but Vancouver and Calgary are obviously also very expensive.
Yeah,
So, and you hear stories of 6 students living in one house, or like 2 people, or like 3 people living in one room because cost of living has become so expensive.
that's crazy.
And so that's why they really want to crack down on making sure people actually meet that financial requirement. Because when you get here, it's such a hassle and it's such a stress if you don't have the money. But
Mhm.
then if you have the money, you can just rent out your 1 bedroom, rent out a room in like a 5 bedroom or like a 3 bedroom house, and you'll be fine. But if you don't have the funds, it gets trickier. And it's also like some of it is the government trying to protect international students because people start to take advantage of the situation. They know all students are looking for housing. So someone will rent their 1 bedroom that they would normally rent, let's say for 800. They'll start renting it out for 500 each and then put like 3 students in there. So for the students, it's cheap because instead of paying 800, they're paying 500. But then for them, they're putting 3 students in one room. So instead of getting 800, they're getting 1,500. So it's a win-win for both. But then the government is like, yeah, but 3 people can't live in one room,
Yeah.
which is a fair point. So they're getting really strict on those proof of funds. So you really need to have them
Hmm.
to make sure like your application goes through.
And how, and then like what would you say, how, I don't know, should I say easy, or how easy is it to get a job after your undergraduate? Like how easy, or how's the process for for international students who want to stay behind and work? How's that looking like for them?
That's yeah. That that's a good question. Okay. Let me see how I can answer that.
Yeah.
One thing is it it depends. Okay, it depends with a couple of things. One, it depends on what program you did. So generally in Canada, there's a lot of jobs and like everyone gets a job is what I'm trying to say. Everyone gets a job. I find in I'm going to continuously reference Zimbabwe because that's what I know. But there's some programs in Zimbabwe that people look down upon. But you get here and you actually get a really decent job and live a really decent life. Um, but the best thing I can say is a person who works in McDonald's or like a fast food restaurant, which is considered minimum wage, if they are working full time, which is 40 hours a week, they're able to pay rent and like live okay. Like they get by. They're not going to live a comfortable life, of course, because it's minimum wage, but they get by.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone who's working minimum wage can get by, if you have a degree,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's definitely one thing I'll say.
Yeah.
But then getting a job is also dependent on your program. Like, is it in demand? Is it like if you did something that's in demand, obviously you're gonna get a job faster. If you did any other program, it it really just depends on the job market.
Mm.
Right now, I don't really, yeah, I don't like some people have been saying the job market is rough, but like I feel like it's hard for me to say to have like a strong opinion because I
Yeah.
have good experience. Like I think I have really good work experience and my time on the job market is it's very relaxed. It's very easy. Like I actually have to choose what company I have to work with, but that's just because I do have experience.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I'll say is if you graduated in Canada, you get a job.
Mm. I think.
One thing I would, sorry, one thing I would definitely encourage people is when you're in school, when you're doing your 4-year degree, if your school program offers you an internship, please, please, please do an internship. That experience will go a long way because you need to remember that when you graduate, more than 10,000 people are also graduating the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Those 10,000 people are also going to be looking for jobs.
That's
So
true.
if you have internship experience, you're already a couple of steps ahead of the people who graduated the same time as you. And if your program doesn't offer you internship opportunities during the summer, when you get to do whatever you want, you're not in school, please find a job that's related to your field.
Mm.
Go around, email companies. If you are doing business or like banking and finance, and your school program doesn't offer you internships, when you're closer to summer, email your local banks and tell them, hey, I'm a student. I'm in my 3rd year. I was hoping to do like a internship or even part-time. Go there and work 20 hours a week.
Mm.
But that experience would be very beneficial for you
Mm.
because when you graduate, you can be like, oh, I worked at this company and I was doing this, 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 this. I'm clearly capable of doing that, that, that. I have knowledge of this, this, this.
Mm.
But then if you wait until you graduate and then try to scramble for a job with everyone else, you're already lowering your chances.
Yeah.
You're lowering your chances. If you, I mean, you could have good grades. Honestly, I don't want to discourage people with the grades thing because it's it's such an adjustment between the two education systems. Like when I came from Zimbabwe, I thought I was really smart. And then I came here and yeah, my self-esteem went really down. So like, but then again, grades don't mean much. You need to be able to build your network. When you go to a company and you see your bosses and whoever, the smart people, connect with those people, connect with them on LinkedIn, say hi here and there, just
Mhm.
make sure they remember you, post on your LinkedIn so that they don't forget you. When an opportunity comes from their company, you can be able to be like, hey, do you remember me? Can you put in a word for me? I applied for this position, and they can speak on your behalf. Because yeah, there's like a lot of companies have like referral programs
Mm.
where if I know someone who's applying to my company, I can say, oh, I know this person, they're a smart kid, they communicate well, they're a good person,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be put on like a list, a wait list for interviewing. So make sure you build those relations. Try to get an internship before you graduate. Get that work experience. It's very important because it's going to be very competitive when you graduate. And also just start applying early. Like don't wait until your graduation date to start looking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
If you know you're graduating in May and it's January, start putting in your applications.
Yeah.
Companies know you're graduating. You have it on your resume, graduating May 2022. But start applying for those jobs early. Like I actually started applying December of 2021 and my graduation was May of 2022. By the time I graduated, I had 3 job offers
Mm-hmm.
and it had nothing to do with my grades. Most of the like 3 of those companies, they didn't even ask for my grades.
Mm-hmm.
They just looked at my resume, they looked at my experience and they wanted to hire me. I did the interview and they still wanted to hire me. But also time is a factor. Start applying early because some companies will post their job in January, pick their candidates, interview in February, and then maybe the job starts after you graduate. But
Mm.
then if you wait for graduation, those jobs are already gone.
Yeah. Like you have to
Because
wait
like
again for another.
exactly. And like winter is such a peak hiring season. So those companies that have like big projects happening in the summer, they start hiring in January, or at least they start posting their jobs in January and then go through the whole process. By the time they get to March, they have all their candidates. But then if you wait until May when you graduate, most jobs are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe the ones that are left, maybe you don't like them, or maybe there's more competition.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start early, you'll be good. If you have internship experience, you'll be good. If you have like your network, you'll be good. Because networking is really good. If you network with someone, they leave one company, they go to the other, and then you realize you actually want to work with the other company, you'll be like, hey, do you remember me? I worked with you at that other company. I'm actually looking to work with the company you're working with. Can you put in a good word for me? And then they'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
But again, there's like a lot of factors to consider. But I always tell people, if you're applying for a job, you're applying against a lot of people. So do things that will give you better odds.
Mm-hmm.
Applying early, having some sort of experience before you graduate, networking. That I think those 3 things would be really important. Good grades, yeah, I mean it's nice to have
Yeah.
good grades because if you decide to do your masters, those grades will matter. They will definitely matter. And it's always good to graduate with like a good GPA because that just means you were actually putting in the work for school. But don't also neglect some of these skills because they're just as important
Yeah.
in the when you get to your job, Like when we're working, no one remembers who had a 4.0 GPO. No one is going to remember that, but people are going to remember your social skills. People are going to remember the work that you did at the job. So you need to balance between having those networking skills and like just having hands-on experience and balancing your grades. But then I know there's other programs where it's hard to get internships. Like I don't really know much about the medical section, but I'm sure they also need some sort of experience too. Yeah, like they do placements and stuff. So I'd say honestly, if you get a chance to do an internship, that would be really good for you
Yeah.
because you'd have good experience.
And okay, we're almost wrapping up. I have just two last questions. One, like what three things are there three things that you think anyone who is applying to Canada should have in mind? Like, or should just make sure like they know about it or something.
I think one thing we definitely talked about, deadlines. Know your deadlines and make sure you do things. Honestly, the earlier the better. If the deadline is March 1st, don't wait until February 29, 11:59. Don't. Just make sure you submit your application on time. Um, Coming to Canada. Uh, hmm, yeah, interesting.
It could be around also the social life or the, the way of living. Should I say cost?
Mm. Oh yeah, everything is expensive. Everything is expensive here. It's definitely a different lifestyle in terms of costs. Like I know a lot of people when they hear, let's say they hear, oh, minimum wage is $15 an hour, and then they think, oh, so that means I'll be making this much. Like if if someone thinks I'm making $1,000 a month, they think it's a lot. But then when people don't realize, yeah, but out of that 1,000, maybe 800 is your rent. And then now you're left with 200. And maybe that's not even enough for food. So they honestly, I don't think there's even a good way to prepare yourself different. Like the way you'd have like your income tax. If you go into a store and something is marked $100, but when you get to your till, it's 150 because they've added the 15% tax. It's it's just the way Canada is, and you'd adjust as you go. But I wouldn't think those are like
Key,
the main things to worry about.
yeah.
I think the deadlines for me, definitely deadlines, know your deadlines. It's very important to know your deadlines. Dressing warm. Canada is
Yeah.
cold. Canada is really cold. You need to dress warm. But honestly, um, I don't know. I think just knowing what you want in life is very important. Whether you come to Canada, you go to the UK, you go, or like you stay in Zimbabwe, just have a clear vision of what you want to do. Canada is a land of opportunities, but they're not handed to you at the airport. You need to get around and know the systems and know what to do. You can start a business. I think it's much easier to start a business and find funding. I've seen people do that here. Um, you can, there's like opportunities are very much available, but you need to have a clear vision of what you want. talk to people, network with people. Again, be familiar with the technologies, the just everything. Be aware of what's happening in the world, in the
Mhm.
country. There's always something happening. Like I always say this because when I got my permanent residence, they just opened like a one-time application for people who were working during COVID.
Mm.
And a lot of people miss that opportunity because they just didn't know. But this is news that was being talked about in, like it was on the immigration newspapers and all that. You just need to be just environmental
Be
awareness.
curious. Be
Just
curious.
know, just
Yeah.
yeah, be curious, know things, talk to different people who would be able to guide
Hmm.
you.
Yeah.
Um, and like honestly, do your research. Don't be afraid to do your research.
Yeah.
Do your research, because like I was really shocked when I came here. And one time at the house that I was staying in, we locked ourselves out of the house and we had to call a locksmith to open the door for us. And they charged us $120 to just come and open the
Okay.
door. Yes. And we were like, yeah, no, we're students, we're broke, we're not going to do that. So
Mm.
we ended up finding another way to open the door. But this is to say that locksmiths actually make a lot of money here. Electricians make a lot of money. Millwrights make a lot of money. Plumbers make a lot of money. Sometimes, because of the countries that we come from, we are very narrow-minded because we have systems that are different from here. So again, it goes back to curiosity. If you do your research, simple things like TikTok. Like I know a lot of things from TikTok because I don't always just get jokes there. There's actually people who are providing really good information
Mhm.
on like serious topics. Obviously, it's TikTok. You take it with a grain of salt, but and like you always have to do your further research. But there's always good things there, or like just people's personal experiences. You want to be an engineer, go on TikTok, find engineers on TikTok. There's someone there talking about their job, if they hate it, what they do in a day. Like follow that girl who's doing a day in the life of an electrical engineer. Figure out, oh, okay, this is what she does. Oh, this is like a typical day in
Mhm.
her life. Is this how I see myself when I become an electrical engineer? So just I don't know, I really feel like the younger generation is very blessed to have much more technology on their disposal.
It's crazy.
Unlike, yeah,
It's crazy how you're saying the younger generation like in 40. Like you're
I'm
so
I'm I'm old. I'm old now. Oh, I came here a long time ago, and there's been a lot of changes, especially with
yeah.
COVID. Like prices have gone up. Policies have changed, some for better, some for worse. And it's always a hassle. Like people think you don't want to help them when you tell them to go and do their research. But if I tell you something, it's like 8-year-old information.
Hmm.
It's so outdated, and maybe that has changed over the years. Like with the rule of students working only 20 hours. When I started, it was 20 hours. And then at some point, there was no cap. Like I think during COVID, there wasn't any cap at all. And then they switched it back and now it's 20 hours. So you need to be up to date with
Yeah.
all this information and just know what's the updated information. And I'm not going to know that.
Yeah.
Your aunt who came here 20 years ago is not going to know that.
Yeah.
So you actually need to kind of find out for yourself if you want to do something science related. Like I struggled with my sister because she did science and she's like, well, you did science. Can you help me pick out a degree? And I'm like, I don't know what you like. What are you passionate about? You did biology, I did physics.
Yeah.
I wanted to do engineering like forever since I was young. It's not a decision I can make for you. I can give you
Mm.
ideas on what you can do. I can tell you what you can do. I can tell you what can make you money. I can tell you which profession has more hours, but ultimately it becomes your decision on what you do.
Yeah.
But it's very important to kind of learn how to navigate
Yeah.
your internet life, finding your own information,
Yeah.
making your own decisions,
And just making sure that
and
also the things that they're reading online, they're from like reliable sources, because again,
reliable
yeah,
sources. Yeah.
reliable sources.
For immigration, just go straight to the Canadian website.
Mhm.
That information is true and it's always 100% accurate and updated.
Yeah. And I think,
And
sorry.
decision making is definitely a good skill to have because you're going to be alone in a foreign country and for most of us, you are experiencing freedom for the first time. It's very exciting, but also people get lost very fast.
Mm.
Like you can easily lose your values if you don't maintain them. So, and like, honestly, there's some decisions, like, because you're like 4, 5, like right now, I'm like 10 hours behind my family back home. Sometimes I'm going to have to make decisions on my own. They are asleep and like I can't talk to them. I have to make a decision. Or I'm here alone, they're back in Zimbabwe. I have to make a decision. So you get to a point where you start having to take a lead in your life decisions, and you need to be prepared for that. You need to be someone who's decisive to make smart and logical decisions because it sometimes it's a make or break decision for your career or like just for your life in general. So
Mm.
it's a taste of freedom can be fun, but it needs to be handled very well.
Yeah. Wow, you have said so many amazing things, not just amazing, but very insightful. And we could continue and dive deeper in this, but this will end up being too long.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
thank you so much for setting this time aside to answer my questions and just to help now the other younger people who are trying to navigate their way to university to I hope that this video would actually, help their journey. Like it will give them a starting point, just like the experience that you're saying about your sister. Maybe if she came along such a video, should have known what to do, even if,
Yeah.
and I think for a lot of people from back home, I mean African societies, when they graduate from high school, they aren't taught anything concerning careers or soft skills. So again, that's where we come in. So I guess
Yeah.
like from them finding this video and discovering who we are as Shasha and what we do and what we want, how we want to bridge that career gap. Like I'm excited for the impact that this video is gonna make.
I
Awesome.
hope it helps someone.
It will, it definitely will. And I think, while we're wrapping this up, when you said that you have public speaking, you know, matters, same back then, I think I've grown. But like just from our conversation, I'm like, someone cannot even spot that, like you're flowing very well. You are good in storytelling. So it's quite crazy how sometimes we think maybe like we think of we're so terrible at something, but like someone else who is watching you is like, actually, you're like a 7
You're
out
much
of
better
10.
than me.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, thank you so much, Daisy.
you're welcome. Well, this was a really good chat. It's kind of nice to help out with some information for people. And I hope someone is encouraged to come to Canada. Canada is nice, guys. I think you should all apply and come. It's a good place. I've really enjoyed my 8 years here, and I'm probably gonna stay a couple more years. So I think you should definitely come. Don't be discouraged by the cold. It's honestly not that bad. I promise it's not that bad.
Okay,
And the cost of living is everywhere. I really want to say this.
that's true.
I have friends in the UK, I have friends in Australia, I have friends in the US. The cost of living is hard everywhere. So don't make that deter you from applying. I think you should still apply. You have a good chance in Canada. You can work here, like jobs are, it's very easy to find a job. I can say this. All the people I graduated with, all the international students I graduated with 2 years ago, they all have engineering jobs. They
Awesome.
probably started a job and left and started another one. So it's really not hard to find a job. And well, I don't know, you could
Yeah,
come here and like even get funding and start your own company,
yeah.
which is good. Yeah. And there's opportunities for that here for sure. So please be encouraged and apply.